Today, Facebook has announced the initial alpha rollout of Facebook News, which I'm sure is going to be much better than the way that they've approached news in the past. So Facebook News, if you haven't already seen, is going to offer stories from a mix of publications, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as digital-only outlets like BuzzFeed and Business Insider. Some stories will be chosen by a team of professional journalists, while others will be tailored to readers' interests over time using Facebook's machine learning technology, which is also what powers Mark Zuckerberg. And so this is a new platform that they're starting up. It's initially only going to be available to a few people for a period of several months. So if you log on to Facebook, don't expect that you're actually gonna see it right now. But if they like what they see over the next few months, it might roll out. And by the way, importantly, this is not going to change anything about your feed. That is still gonna be the weird mix of dog photos and conspiracy theories. This is a separate tab specifically for curated news from a list of organizations.
So Facebook does this occasionally where they try to introduce a new product and it either succeeds or fails. So the Messenger app, and a lot of them failed. They had like a Foursquare equivalent for a while that failed, and their Messenger app, they've tried to really make happen. And so that's what this is, and usually it's a version of someone else's thing that exists already. So this stories they did, they stole from Snapchat, but like Google and like even the status bar and the Twitter timeline, but Google News is a thing. And Google News does this exact same thing, and I suggested back in the day that, like probably a couple years ago, that when all of this started being a problem for Facebook, that they start doing something like this. That they
You're talking about like fake news being a problem?
Yeah, that they just say, here's your news, that's it. Yeah. But I have the Google News feed, and it is a mix of here are the big trending stories. And I think that will do, I mean, I just found out about this, but like it will do a certain amount of lifting if it does become ubiquitous enough across the site and for among users and their typical Facebook experience. It will do something towards saying, people who come to Facebook expecting every news article on it to be real, this actually will give you some real actual news if it's done right, versus what happens now, which is you just go through your feed and you get
anything.
You get things that look like news, but that is literally how fake news, when the term was used accurately, began.
Yeah, so look, I have some thoughts about how this might actually work in practice, but before that, you raised the possibility that if this is done right, there is a reason to think that it might not be done right, or at least not done perfectly. So let me give you some more details and we'll get into the first big initial problem. Facebook is going to pay for a range of content from dozens of publishers, including some deals that are multi-million-dollar deals. Also local news from smaller publishers in areas like Dallas, Fort Worth, Miami, and Atlanta. That actually is fine. I'm saying getting the local news.
Right, but local news apparatuses are typically part of a larger like multimedia or media conglomerate that controls what they do. So just saying that they're gonna get their local news from Dallas, Fort Worth isn't enough.
No, it's not enough if you're saying that makes it necessarily like authentic or verifiable, but at least it will let people get a wide range of news from across not just the country, but from their area.
The reason I say that is typically when Facebook rolls something new out, they go, hey, we've covered a base. You should love it. The same thing we heard from Zuckerberg when he was in that the hearing and said, well, we have an independent news fact-checking site. But AOC points out Daily Caller's on it. Doesn't that not pass the sniff test?
That's actually where we get into one of the problems. Very similar thing to what AOC was doing. Before we get to that though, Zuckerberg put out a statement about this, said, we feel acute responsibility because there's obviously an awareness that the internet has disrupted the news industry business model. We figured out a different way to do this that we think is going to be better and more sustainable.
It's still Google News, dude.
It is effectively, and yeah, like you said, they keep adding things from other platforms. And honestly, does anyone think that good, they've added all these features over the past few years and Facebook is better than it used to be? I could not give you 3 reasons why I'm still on it other than inertia, I guess. But in any event, what's interesting about this is that as of just last year, Rupert Murdoch was putting pressure on Mark Zuckerberg to pay Fox and conceivably others, I'm sure Murdoch was only interested in Fox, being paid for their content. And Zuckerberg said he wasn't remotely interested in that. And less than a year later, or maybe a year and change later, he has completely flipped and now is not just paying them, but has this whole service that is designed around paying a number of different publishers of news. And Is that the result of more pressure behind the scenes? I don't know, but it's a 180 in just a year. But anyway, the big issue is not that New York Times and Washington Post are going to get paid by Facebook to spread their news. If that helps them to stay fiscally good, I'm fine with that. It's that another Facebook news partner is Breitbart, the far-right digital publisher. Unlike the Times, the Washington Post, and several other paid partners, Breitbart will not be paid, at least initially. And the problem with that is not that Breitbart is right-wing, it's that Breitbart is, it's been normalized over the past few years, I guess, because Donald Trump is president, he takes him seriously.
No, here's why. Is because the nature of Facebook is one where if something's wrong with Facebook, they're afraid people will stop using Facebook. And that's different from if something's wrong with the New York Times, people stop reading the New York Times, fine. But the New York Times isn't a larger company that does other stuff. Facebook, in launching Facebook News, is like, all right, we want to solve problem A, but we don't want to give ourselves problem B. Problem B would be if we started Facebook News and kept right-wing news outlets out of the picture, right-wingers will stop using Facebook altogether, or conservative-leaning people who hear the eventual message brought up by Breitbart and everybody saying like there's a conservative media bias, they're afraid they're gonna drive their largest growing user base was just like conservatives over 65 off of Facebook. That's the problem, and that problem is one of too large a company with too many irons in the fire. It's the problem with something that's that big that needs to be broken up into smaller companies.
Yeah, look, I don't even know if it would drive them off. I mean, the thing is, like, this is gonna get rolled out to be a separate tab, but your feed is still gonna be the Wild West of fake news and sites that are designed to look like CNN but aren't. Like, they're still gonna have that. I don't think most conservatives are gonna be clicking on the news tab. I think they're perfectly happy to just see that feed of people who spread the sort of fake news that they want. But anyway, really fast, for people who aren't very familiar with Breitbart, you are a blessed few. But one of the reasons that people have a problem with it is it's just an out and out white nationalist alt-right website. It has been for a very long time. They've gotten in trouble over the years for doing things like, you can take a look at this screenshot. This was their section on black violence that they had. It was a literal tag that you could search on their website to get stories that give you the black on black violence content that you've been looking for. That's just a normal thing that, news sites do.
Wait, go back to
you ever go to the New York Times black on black crime section? Can we see that one more time?
All of the ones above it. FBI framed Flynn, Spygate heats up, Schiff's dungeon, Soros speaks, and then Brexit blocked again.
Yeah, if you want the news, but you don't want to get uncomfortable mentally, even 0.1%. And that's what you just go to Breitbart, because they will give you exactly what they want. But anyway, it's been attacked previously. This was back when Steve Bannon was moved from Breitbart to the White House. The ADL put out a statement saying they strongly oppose the appointment of Steve Bannon as senior advisor and chief strategist in the White House. It's a sad day when a man who presided over the premier website of the alt-right, a loose-knit group of white nationalists and unabashed anti-Semites and racists, is slated to be a senior staff member in the People's House. And an expose by BuzzFeed later that year documented how Breitbart had solicited story ideas and copy edits from white supremacists and neo-Nazis. And their site, I think, has shifted more heavily into anti-immigration and anti-Islam, but that's what the site is. It's like stuff that's come from 4chan or from the dark parts of Reddit or from these sorts of conspiracy theory havens. And then it's cleaned up a little bit, and it looks like it's news kind of, because Breitbart gets to have a person in the White House. And they are going to be one of the trusted news purveyors from a very select elite few that Facebook is going to put they're going to put their thumbs up on. Breitbart is as official as the New York Times.
It's not getting paid though.
It's not getting paid.
But that's exactly the point.
If you click on it, you will trust it.
But the point is they're like, but they're not getting paid, right? Do you like me again? And I will say that like it is a drastically strange and changing news environment. And that is a difficult problem for Facebook to solve. So I understand that they have what they consider to be growing pains along the way. My grave concern is that they don't allow the gravity of concern for the people who are suffering from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is the discourse in the universe, essentially.
Yeah, they're focusing on we've gotten attacked, we've gotten pressured. I'm gonna come up with a solution because we're suffering, not what are people's actual concerns about? Not as is Tucker Carlson telling me that I'm not being fair to him, but really what is misinformation doing to the American voter?
Yeah.
Which is far more important. but Zuckerberg apparently doesn't have that concern.
And just last thing, we need to keep the pressure up because the right is keeping the pressure up on Zuckerberg, and as much as he doesn't like it, he is taking meetings with them.
Exactly.
So we need to kick and scream more than they do because we're better.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.